Energy efficiency can be important for reducing greenhouse gas emissions while saving households money on energy bills. However, while energy efficiency can sometimes fail to deliver, which I covered in another video, sometimes energy efficiency investments can deliver great private returns, reduce inequality, and help combat climate change. And the paper we will cover today provides one such example. The paper is written by Susanna Bergauer and Joshua D. and published in the top economic journal, the American Economic Review. The authors conducted a randomized experiment with 1,000 households in Nairobi, the capital of Kenya, to test the impact of a more energy-efficient stove called the Jikokoa. In the experiment, households were offered a subsidized Jikokoa stove. So households were able to switch from this stove to this stove. In contrast to the $3 cost of a traditional stove, the upfront cost of the Jikokoa was $40, so a lot more expensive. As a reference, the average income per day is $5. So the traditional stove is a half day of work, while the energy efficient stove is 8 days of work. The paper estimates that households can get fuel savings of 40%, or $237, over the stove's 2-year lifespan. Given that households spend 14% of their income on charcoal, this is huge. In addition, the authors evaluate the benefits of reductions in greenhouse gas emissions from switching stoves at nearly $300. So, putting private and public benefits together, this is a striking $537, or almost more than 10 times the initial investment. We will discuss these numbers in more detail later on in the video. But despite huge benefits of energy savings, households are only willing to pay $12 for the stove, 1/4 of its cost. In other words, these households are not buying the stove. So why is the willingness to pay so low? Well, after excluding other factors, such as the households being unaware of the benefits, the authors find that the main reason for the low willingness to pay is that households do not have the money at hand and find it challenging to borrow the money. As part of the experiment, the authors provide households with access to credit for 3 months. This credit line more than doubles their willingness to pay. And this $25 is about the same as the energy savings a household would get from having the stove for 3 months. In other words, households are willing to borrow as much as they can get in benefits for the duration of the loan. Interestingly, after the experiment was over, a new cheaper model at a price of $30 was introduced. At this new price, and using some econometrics, the authors calculate that first, without a loan, 7% of participants would buy this new stove. But with a loan, about 1/3 of participants would buy it. So that is a 400% increase in adoption because of the loan. Taken together, the results of this paper indicate that credit constraints prevent households from adopting energy-efficient technologies that would not only be greatly beneficial for the households, but also provide huge environmental benefits. In the remainder of this video, I will discuss some background statistics, the technology, the results, and then discuss the topic of credit in more detail. So let's begin. First, let's set the stage using some statistics from the paper. The authors enrolled about 1,000 participants who live in Nairobi to participate in the experiment. And the median household in the area of the study earns around $5 per day and spends around 14% of their income, or 70 cents per day, on charcoal. Second, the cooking procedure using the new stove is basically the same as for the old stove. In addition, participants believe that the new stove will deliver energy savings. For illustration, the authors demonstrated the predicted energy savings of about 50% through a flyer. And you can see the reduced energy expenditures here demonstrated by a reduction in charcoal necessary. Now, these elements, the fact that people are aware of the benefits and that cooking technology is more or less the same, is important as other papers have found that more technologically advanced cooking stoves can fail to deliver either because people do not believe in the benefits or because they are much harder to operate. So let's now have a closer look at the energy savings. The median household spends $255 on charcoal per year. At local prices, this corresponds to 849 kilograms of charcoal. So a 40% reduction of charcoal means purchases go from 849 kilos to 518 kilos a year. Converting these numbers to emissions, you get that emissions of CO2 decrease from 9 tons per year to 5.5 tons per year, a difference of 3.5 tons. To put that number in perspective, the average car in the United States emits about 4.6 tons a year. According to Statista, average per capita emissions in the European Union are about 7 tons in 2020. So a switch in the stove for a household in Nairobi is almost equivalent to a gasoline car being substituted by an electric car powered by solar or nuclear energy, or like half of the emissions of a person in Europe. So a switch in stove provides massive environmental benefits. We can also convert emissions to money using the social cost of carbon, the cost you impose on others by emitting. Using a value of $42 as used by the Environmental Protection Agency, you get a value of $147 a year in environmental benefits from greenhouse gas reductions alone. Besides the private gains and environmental benefits, there's also a self-reported decrease of about an hour needed to cook, which can be a big time saver as well. With all these results in mind, the adoption of the better stove seems like a win-win, both from a private and public point of view, and participants are aware of the benefits. So why are they not willing or able to take out a loan? Well, first, according to the paper, less than a quarter of the households would be able to borrow the full cost of the stove. Second, even if they could, people cite high borrowing costs and are worried about their ability to pay back the loan. And loans are also often only used for emergency situations. So people might want to keep their credit for situations like illness or temporary unemployment if they're not covered for unemployment. On the lender side, there's the issue of default rates. In the experiment, when a loan was given, only 72% of the loan was repaid. Thus, lenders would lose about 28% of their initial investment. So lenders would have to charge a much higher interest rate to recover their losses, driving up the cost of borrowing even more and creating an even more costly adoption. And I referred to the paper for more details on the credit situation in Nairobi, but ultimately, the details of a subsidy program will have to account for the specific situation and the specific city or country at hand. But overall, the paper concludes that the adoption of more energy-efficient stoves can have large private and public benefits. And at least in the context of Nairobi and the Jikokoa, it seems that it is a money problem. And so having subsidized energy-efficient stoves could be a major step forward to alleviating inequality while tackling climate change. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel below.